let's not waste any time and let's jump into the data. All right, so I'm opening up the Excel file, and there's a few preliminary steps that we want to take before we dive into Excel. All right. Okay. So the preliminary steps are the following. What you'll notice is, first of all, it's a little bit small. My screen is big. Might be a little bit small for you. We don't want you straining your eyes and squinting to see what's what. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in, either using the zoom bar at the bottom right. That's not the dance class. That's Zumba. This is the zoom bar in the bottom right-hand corner. Or we can hold down the control button on our keyboard to give us control, and we can scroll with the wheel on the mouse. All right, that's assuming we're using a mouse, and we'll talk to you about the mouse a lot more over the course of the session. We do believe in becoming more of a keyboard person, but the mouse is still useful. We don't need to throw it away. So we just want to tip the scales in favor of the keyboard, and we're going to be showing you and demonstrating to you a whole lot of keyboard shortcuts during today's session. But what I've done right now is hold down the control key on my keyboard and scroll up with the wheel on the mouse, and that zooms me in. I'm now on 130% zoom. The next thing I'm going to do is just to have a look at the whole workbook and the name of the workbook, the name of the sheets, the scope of what I'm actually dealing with here. Let's do a bit of an orientation. That's a good idea. So what you'll notice over here is here's the name of the file. All right. And it says read only. It says save to this PC. Your screen might look slightly different depending on what version of Excel you're using. I will say very briefly that we're on Microsoft 365, and I'm sure many of you are as well. What that means is it's an annual subscription to Microsoft, and you get a whole lot of apps such as Excel, Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, etc. And you get live, up-to-date, up-to-the-minute updates from the people in Microsoft land when they update their apps and their programs, and they introduce new features and they fix bugs and glitches. You get those updates. So that works very well. If you're using an older version of Excel, the interface might look slightly different, but that's okay. The functionality is pretty much going to be the same. Okay. So I'm on a read-only version of this file, and I'm going to save this file in a specific location, because what you will see is that we've actually opened this file up from a zipped folder, and it's not a very good idea to work inside a zipped folder. A zipped folder is a good idea for sending big folders or files via email or uploading and downloading. It's good for transfer, but it's not good for actually working and saving. What we want to do is we want to save this in a location, either on our computer, but better yet, in the cloud, because then it means it's backed up, it's saved in the cloud, it synchronizes across our different devices, and it also synchronizes between different team members within our organization. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you our first shortcut that we're going to be looking at from our cheat sheet. But how did I get back into this zipped folder? What I did was I held down the Alt key with my left thumb. I don't have a nervous twitch in my left thumb. I'm just showing you my left thumb. We hold down Alt on the keyboard with that, and we press the left, we use our left index finger to press tab. Okay, what that does, you can see these are all the windows or applications that I've got open over there. We can see Spotify. We heard from Jeremy Loops and Sunset Sweatshop, two proudly South African and Cape Townian bands, just before we started the actual broadcast. So I just hold Alt and Tab, and it lets me alternate between, if I just press Alt and Tab once, like that, it switches me between the two most recently used applications. And that's very, very useful. It'll save you a lot of time, as opposed to taking your mouse and thinking, which app am I going to, where am I going to? It just saves you a lot of time when you're working across different apps, which you are pretty much all the time. So I'm going to scroll down now to keyboard shortcuts for Windows. I press enter, I open it up, and I wait for it to load. And there it is. For some reason, it's put this Adobe PDF window on the right half of my screen. I'm not so happy with it there. I actually want it to be in full screen. So what I'm going to do is I can press Windows and the up arrow to make it go full screen. But I also don't really like this whole Adobe interface. So something you'll see that the more and more you become attuned to using and favoring keyboard shortcuts is that if we go down to the menu and we go to View, we'll see here that there are keyboard shortcuts for read mode and full screen mode. Control H and Control L. I'll give you a quick demo. Control H goes into read mode. I can still see that I'm in an Adobe window, but it's much better. And then I can go Control L which actually goes into full screen mode. It will take a few seconds to load, but there it is. There's my keyboard shortcuts cheat sheet. I've zoomed out a little bit so it fits nicely from top to bottom. There's page 1. And if I click or I press left or right, it shows me page 1 and page 2. All right. Okay, guys, you'll notice that the very last keyboard shortcut on our cheat sheet on the second page, bottom right here, is F12, which is save as, and that's exactly what we're going to be using. I'm pressing Alt-Tab to go back to Excel, and I'm going to press F12, and I'm also going to preempt the fact that for some of you, when you press F12, it does something else. All right, guys, listen carefully. The reason for that is because some of you need to press the FN key and F12. All right, and that goes for all the F keys. Okay, so you need to press function and that F key. So function or FN and F12 at the same time. So you hold down the function key and you press F12, and then it opens up save as. I haven't got the chat open, but I'm going to open it up. There it is. There's Avi posting the keyboard shortcuts into the chat. Thank you, Avi. So let's move that out the way. And guys, what you'll notice here is that I've got my address over here, and you can see this is a weird and wonderful language over here where it's actually trying to save this into a downloaded zipped folder. That's not where we want to be working. As I mentioned, we want to be working in Dropbox or OneDrive or Google Drive or wherever we are saving it in the cloud, so that it's saved, it's backed up, it synchronizes with our different devices. I know I work on 2 separate laptops sometimes. I want things to be synchronized. So for that reason, I save everything almost religiously into Dropbox. I don't have things floating around on my desktop and in my documents. It's very strict that things go in their specific location. Okay, what you'll notice as well, this is a cool trick, is that I have pinned this monthly masterclass folder for today. I've pinned it to the quick access over there. So in order to access it, I just go and click on it down the left. If I go into this folder, if I want to go one folder up, I can hold Alt and the up arrow, and I can actually see all the monthly masterclasses. As you can see here, we had one in Feb and one in January, etc., etc. And if I wanted to pin one of them, I can just drag it over there, or I can right click and say pin to quick access. All right, that's another great hack to, if you're using some specific subfolder very, very frequently, pin it to the left so that you don't have to always struggle to actually locate it. So you just say pin to quick access, and you'll see there it is. Okay, you can unpin it as well. Right click, unpinned. Okay, so guys, I'm going to go into monthly masterclass, and I can actually just save it here, or I can go into my downloads folder. This is where I saved it here for me and Avi, and there's the actual file. You can see it's put copy of. Put those words copy of. I can take those out. What I prefer to do, just to be very clear and disciplined with this, is I put my initials at the end. What does that mean? That tells me and it tells my team that I've worked on this file. All right, so it's the original file, but then I've added on my initials to the end. I press enter, and now it is saved. Okay, so we can get this admin out of the way so that we don't have issues and headaches into the future. All right, guys, the next thing to look at is the name of the sheets and how much data we have. Part of the orientation is to have a look here. We see that we're on sheet 1, okay, and it's a bunch of data. So instead of calling it sheet 1, which is the default, I'm going to double click. I'm going to call it data. And then what is sheet 2 all about? Sheet 2 actually shows some feedback, survey feedback from a previous course that we've run. And the reason for this is that part of the AI functionality that we want to share with you today, if we have time, from experience, we typically struggle to actually finish everything, and we struggle to include this. So we actually have a short little video, a link to a video, which we will definitely share in the chat for you, which shows you how to use AI functionality to do a sentiment analysis. All right, so what's that all about? That means taking qualitative descriptive data like this and using this AI functionality to analyze it and to rank it. All right, to give it a rating based on what it sees in terms of these words. Very, very cool. Okay, so I can just pull the survey feedback. All right, as I said, always a good idea to label things instead of, like in a book, instead of having chapter 1, chapter 2, you actually have names of the chapters. All right, guys, the next thing is to become familiar with the actual scope of the data in this data sheet. First thing we can do is have a look at the top row where we've got headings. We see that there is first name, last name, mobile number. We see a progress figure over here. We see course. All right, there are our courses. We see sign-in count, last activity, SAST, member since, and then organization. So what in the world is this? First thing I'll say is there's nobody's real data. It's all jumbled up. All right, so we exported data from our learning platform with progress figures for our students who are busy doing our courses. So that we actually did. But then what we did to protect people's personal information is we jumbled up the names and surnames, and we actually created a whole lot of randomized cell phone numbers. You can see cell phone numbers in South Africa definitely don't start with 048. I think 048 is actually the dialing code in Poland, but I don't think you're going to get through to anyone if you try these numbers. You are more than welcome to try if you are curious. All right, so we've got lots of data here. How many columns? What's it? I think it's 10 columns. How many rows of data? Who can tell me in the chat? How do I figure out how many rows of data I've got? I'll give you a clue. The one way that I can try do this is I can press the down arrow and I can hold the down arrow. Right. The other way I can try is I can press page down again. Okay, I see the chat is going here. Loreko says control and end. Great stuff. Good guess. Who's that? That is Bule. Bule says 14839 and Queen says shift down arrow. Okay, so these are all good guesses. Let's go through what Queen said. She said shift down arrow. Okay, so that's a good idea, but what that does is it actually extends. So that's like highlighting or selecting a bunch of cells using shift and the different arrow keys. So that is good, but that's not what we need in this scenario. Control and end is a very good guess because what that does is it takes us to the very last cell, the last row and the last column that we have used. And there you can see we're on Avery Dennison, and that is cell J14839. How do I know that? I see it there in the name box. I see that column J is selected. I see row 14839, and I am quite happy with that. Control and end. Good stuff. Control and home is the opposite of that. Control and home is the opposite of that. So try that out. Control and home should take you to cell A1. And there we go. That's similar to if you think about on Waze or on Google Maps, you want to quickly navigate home from wherever you are, you just press home, takes you the fastest route home. So here we press control home. And I need to mention that on your laptop, if you're using a small laptop with a small keyboard, then there's a good chance that you can't see the home key. And you're thinking, Dan, where's the home key? All right. So if that is the case, then chances are your home key is shared with your left arrow key. All right. So Avi will pop into the chat there. The shortcut that you need to press is control and function and the left arrow. Control, function, and the left arrow in order to press control home. Okay. So as I say, and you just need to be aware of this, is that different keyboards have different layouts and different, sometimes slightly different variations of the keyboard shortcuts. All right, guys. The other shortcut I wanted to show you, I was showing you down arrow, down to go down in a specific column. I can jump or teleport to the bottom of that particular column by pressing control and the down arrow key. All right, and that jumps me in this case to the bottom of column D. All right, and I think somebody mentioned in the chat, I see Avi said, how many rows are there in Excel in total? If we press control down arrow again, you'll see that it goes down to a big number, 1,048,576. So that's the total number of rows in Excel. Why such a random number? Fun fact, in case you are mathematically inclined, it's 2 to the power of 20. In other words, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 20 times, you get to that number, 1,048,576. Back in the past, there used to be around 60-something thousand, I think 65,000 rows. It was 2 to the power of 16. But since then, as you can see, Excel has increased its capacity significantly. If you do have data that goes beyond 1 million lines of data, good chance you need to use some kind of other data program, data processing or data storage software. All right, but for Excel, for the purposes of today, we have how many rows? 14,839 rows. How did I jump back up? I used control and the up arrow. What I want you to do is take a few seconds now to become familiar with control and the different arrow direction keys. Control, up, down, left, right to jump us around our spreadsheet. That's a huge one for navigating around quickly and efficiently. I remember when I started my first job as an actuary back in 2009, that was, I think, the first shortcut that my boss showed me. I was scrolling down like this with the mouse, and then I was grabbing it here to try and go down to the bottom of the data. It was taking me long, and he said, no, Dan, if you're going to work here, you've got to start using shortcuts. And he showed me control down, and I was blown away by it. All right, guys. So now we've saved our work in a location. We've familiarized ourselves with the scope of the data that we're working with. We've renamed the sheet tabs. We are on track here. What we're also going to do is we're going to save our work regularly. We don't have to save now because we haven't done anything to our file except for change the sheet names. So I guess we can. We can press Control S. All right. And it's good to be in a habit of saving our work regularly, frequently, consistently. Okay, guys, so the next thing we're going to do, and here's where the real fun starts, is where we start seeing magic in our spreadsheet. All right, we saw a bit of magic with navigating around with those shortcut keys. Now what we're going to do is we're going to convert our ordinary, plain, boring, unformatted data into what's known as a table in Excel. All right, and table starts with what letter? Okay, good. It starts with the letter T. So we're going to stand somewhere in our data. What do I mean by that? I can be standing anywhere inside my data set. I just don't want to stand in no man's land out on the right-hand side. I want to stand somewhere in my data, and I'm going to press the keyboard shortcut Control T, and you can see that it says Create Table. There's my little box that pops up, Create Table. Where is the data for your table? It says A1 to J14839. Notice those dollar signs as well. That is a fixed set range that it's picked up. It's identified the scope of the table, and it also says my table has headers, which it does. So Excel has noticed that. I can press enter or click OK, and there we go. It has formatted our data into what's known as a table in Excel. All right, and guys, you're going to love this. It's a game changer. We're going to show you some of the features and functionality of a table, and you're going to see as we go through the rest of the session just how much easier it makes our lives when we are working with data in Excel. All right, guys, the first thing we notice, let's have a look and see what we do notice. Firstly, we notice the color. We see that it's blue and white. We see that we've got the headings in a specific format with the blue fill and the bold white text. We also notice the sort and filter buttons over here, which is pretty cool. So instead of having to select all our data and then click filter, it's got it in there for us. Okay. And it overall makes things much more intuitive and user-friendly for us when analyzing our data. And that's exactly what we're actually wanting to do here. Before we go any further, let's take a step back and let's ask ourselves, based on this data, what are some of the things that we want to actually be able to understand, and what are some of the statistics and the insights and intelligence that we would like to get from this data? Well, besides for looking at each individual's progress and which course they're on and how many times they've signed in and when last they were active and when they joined the platform and what organization they're at, it might be nice to see all the people from General Motors and how are they doing. All right. It also might be nice to see all the people on Excel 101 and how's their progress versus all the people on 202 versus 303, etc. It might also be nice to analyze this according to people who joined and have been a member since a certain date, maybe since this year or since 3 years ago or whatever that is. It might also be nice to see how different organizations compare to each other. And I think there's so many different analyses that we can do on this data. It might also be nice to see how many times on average do people log in. All right. And what's the average progress across all these people? Okay. So these are all statistics and insights that we want to gain from our data, which is not so easy if we just have raw data. But with the help of a table, and you're going to see a pivot table as well, we can analyze our data much more efficiently and effectively. All right, guys. So just having a look at our table, we notice that we get a table design tab. All right, that's known as a contextual tab, and it appears up on our ribbon. This whole area at the top is called the ribbon. You'll notice that we've got the table design tab, which we didn't have previously. Anytime you've got something new in Excel or some different kind of object like a chart or a table or a pivot table or a shape or a picture, when you select or you're on that particular object, then you'll often get a bunch of additional features on the ribbon. Okay, so if we click out of the table, you can see table design goes away. Click in it, and there it is. All right, guys, so you can choose different styles. We can even just hover our mouse cursor over it, and you'll notice, okay, we might want to choose this orange. Maybe we like those orange headers, and we prefer gray and white alternating stripes, so it's not as colorful, a little bit more subtle. We might want to turn these banded rows off, but you'll see if we actually turn it off, it's not as user-friendly and easy to read. You'll see that when we hover our mouse cursor over a button or a feature, we actually get a little explanation, okay, from Excel. In this case, it describes the banded rows, and it actually says it makes it easier to read. We could do banded columns, but I'm not a big fan of that. We could format the last column in a specific formatting, and the same for the first column. We can turn the filter buttons on and off. We can turn the header row on and off, and we can actually activate our total row, and our total row is a magic feature. It really is very, very useful indeed. What you'll see over here, by the way, what it did was when we activated that total row, okay, you see if I hover my cursor over it, it says Control-Shift-T. That is the keyboard shortcut to use to turn it on and off. All right. What you'll see is that it actually jumped us to the bottom of the data. Okay. So it intuitively jumped us to the bottom so we can actually see the total row. All right. But what it's done as well is because we are down and we've scrolled down towards the bottom of our data, we ordinarily would lose our headings. I see far too many spreadsheets where the person scrolls down and then they can't see what the headings are. And that's because they haven't frozen the top row, okay, using the freeze panes feature. And if you go to the view tab on the ribbon, there you'll see it, freeze panes. Okay, maybe you've seen this before and you've used it. It's a great feature. But I think even better is the fact that when you're working in table mode, if you scroll down inside your table, your ABC column headers get replaced by your actual descriptive column headings. Okay, if I click outside of my table there, you can see the ABC. And when I'm back in my table there, I see the actual headings. And I've got my sort and filter button, so I can sort and filter the data even from down, way down towards the bottom. All right. In addition, I was asking a couple of questions a few moments ago. I was saying, maybe we want to know what the average progress is across all the people on all the courses. So what we can do is we can go to our total row over here. We click on this drop down and we go to average. All right. And you'll see here we've got 0.879. Okay. So that's just under 88%. Something that you'll notice over here is, and maybe you've been thinking this the whole time, is this entire column should be formatted rather as. Okay, good. You probably said percentage. Okay. So I couldn't hear you, but I'm assuming that that's what you were saying out loud or in your mind. There we go. And Joel has said it in the Zoom chat as well, percentage. We're going to do that in a few moments. Hold your horses. What we want to do is just finish what we've started here in terms of the total row. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go do the same thing for average sign-in count. What is the average number of times that somebody signs in to the platform? You can see it's 11.769. Okay. And that's pretty cool. You can see here under organization, we've got 14838. So what it's done is it's selected count because it can't add up or create an average when you've got words here, you've got text. So what it's done is it's counted up the number of items in that particular column. And you'll see here that what formula or function have we actually used? It's automatically using the subtotal function, and it's got subtotal and then its function number. You can see it's put in 103 over there, and that's the specific code for count. And let's have a look here. We've got subtotal 101, and that's the specific code for average. Okay. If we were to do a sum, okay, and we added up the total number of sign-ins across all these people, there you can see it's used code 109. So what's this all about? Not to get too deep into the subtotal function, but just to tell you why Excel is using it. Firstly, because if we filter our data, you'll see that the totals adjust accordingly. So that's the biggest reason, because if we were to use an ordinary Excel function like average or count or sum, then when we filter our data, it doesn't change the answer. The answer will still calculate based on the whole database. All right. And let me demonstrate this to you. You can see let's go back to average. 11.76, and here we got 0.879. If we were to show only Excel 101, what have I done? I've deselected where it says select all, and I just selected that checkbox over there. And there you can see the number of sign-ins for Excel 101 is 9.9 on average, and the progress is 0.888. Okay, so you can see that it's dynamic. All right, I can see that this column has been filtered there. I've got a little funnel icon in that sort and filter button. What you'll notice over here is there's the clear filter button, which is sitting on my quick access toolbar. Okay, so that's useful. How did I get the clear filter button on my quick access toolbar? There's a good chance that you don't have that button on your quick access toolbar, because the default is that you got save, undo, and redo on your quick access toolbar. And the default also is that you've got those buttons and your quick access toolbar sitting up at the top left-hand corner of your ribbon. I've got mine below my ribbon. Okay, I can just simply right click on anywhere on the toolbar, and I can actually say it. I can say show quick access toolbar above the ribbon. There it is now above the ribbon. Or I can right click and say show below the ribbon. I prefer it below because then I can see the whole button with the actual name of that particular feature. And how did I get the clear filter button on my quick access toolbar? If I go to the data tab and I hover my mouse cursor over the clear filter button, I can right click and say add to quick access toolbar. All right. And if I want to remove it, I could say right click and remove from quick access toolbar. So I've removed save, undo, and redo because I don't need them. Save, I know, is Control S. Speaking of which, I must press Control S. And practice what I preach. We must save our work regularly. And undo is Control Z and redo is Control Y. So I don't need them on the quick access toolbar. I'd rather fill up the quick access toolbar with other stuff that I really, really do need and that will move the needle in terms of my efficiency. Okay, so now I know that if I want to clear the filter, I just click there. Or even better, are you ready for the magic Alt key? I hold down, I just press, sorry, I don't need to hold anything. I just press the Alt key once. You'll notice a whole lot of numbers and letters coming up on your ribbon. Can you see that? All right, I just pressed the Alt key once. Okay, we have not broken Excel. I know some of you might have pressed this in the past. I think I used to, and then panic, what's going on here? This just means that you can now navigate anywhere on the ribbon by following these prompts. Okay, so if I want to clear the filter, I can see the number 4 attached to my clear filter button. Yours might be 1 or 2 or 8 or whatever it is. Just have to look on your specific computer, on your screen, have a look. For me, I'm just going to press the number 4 and that clears the filter. Okay. In a similar way, what I've done is I've put the auto fit column width button over there, and that would be the second item on my quick access toolbar. I've got the all borders feature. What I'm going to do as well is I want to remove grid lines. You see all these grid lines over here? Believe it or not, you don't have to select the entire spreadsheet and fill it in with white paint. Okay, you see this little paint bucket. There's the white in the top left corner. Believe it or not, you don't have to do that. You also don't have to take Tipex on your computer screen to cover all those grid lines. You can actually remove them by unticking the box next to View Grid Lines, and that's on the View tab. There's the View Grid Lines. As you can see, I've put it on my quick access as well. So let's try that. Alt, and for me, it's 6. Or you can go W. All right, and then you can see View Grid Lines is V and then G. Okay, so now my grid lines have gone away. It does save a bit of time if I press Alt 6. Okay, Alt 6. So I don't have to worry about Alt, W, V, G. Just Alt 6. Okay, it looks a lot neater without the grid lines. All right, guys, something else that we would want to do is we would want to auto fit the column widths. The easiest way to do that, we can use the mouse. We can click in the top left-hand corner on that little triangle there. And what we can then do is take our mouse cursor between any of the two columns, between any of the two column letters or headings over here, until our mouse cursor turns into that plus sign with the arrows right and left. And then what we can do is we can double click. All right, and there you can see it snaps it into the correct width to handle the data in each of the columns. Okay, so you can see there are probably some long surnames over here, last names, and that's why it's made this column nice and wide. Okay, once again, Control S to save our work. And we have made really good progress so far, because so far we have formatted our work. We're working efficiently. We're using a whole bunch of keyboard shortcuts to get things done in record time. And we've done a bit of analysis on our data here. We have had a look and calculated very quickly just by choosing from the drop down what is the average progress across all the courses and the average number of sign-ins and how many people are there. And the next thing we're going to do is what we mentioned a few minutes ago in terms of formatting this particular column of progress figures into percentage format. And you're going to love this. Are you ready for this? This is a keyboard shortcut that we love, and we're going to use numerous times over the course of the rest of the session. And because practice doesn't make perfect, we're not striving for perfection. Okay, practice makes permanent. The more you practice, the luckier you get, as Gary Player says, and also the more you practice, the more permanent and fluent these skills will become for you. So it really is about practicing. Okay, so shortcut that I'm showing you and that we're going to look at now is Control and Spacebar. Control and Spacebar is to select the entire column. Where is the spacebar? All right, it's the place where the aliens go to have a drink, at the spacebar. It's also the biggest key on your keyboard, right in the middle. Have a look, there it is, the big spacebar, Control and Spacebar, and that selects all the data in this column, but it doesn't actually include the total row. And I can see that here, it's selected all the data inside the table. I need to press it again to select the total row. And if I pressed it the third time, it would actually go all the way down to row number 1,000,000. Okay, so let's try that again. Control Spacebar, press it a second time, and we're happy with that. We don't need to format everything down to 1,000,000. That's going to waste time and resources for Excel. We don't want to put it under significant strain to do something like that. We just want to be focused on what we're actually working on. So Control and Spacebar twice. And then if you have a look here on your Home tab, you'll see that the percentage button has a keyboard shortcut in brackets. It says Control and Shift and percentage. Now, guys, the percentage key is above the number 5 on your keyboard. Right? You might have 2 5s on your keyboard, one over here and one over here. We are dealing with the one on the left above the letters R and T. Okay, that's the number 5. And if we press Control Shift 5, essentially what we're doing is Control and percent. Yeah, so that formats these numbers as percentages, and we can increase the decimal and decrease decimal. I know a lot of people get confused with these two buttons over here. I think I've gotten used to it over the years. So increase the decimal or decrease the decimal. Okay, so what I might want is for all these figures in the table to actually have no decimals, but maybe for the total, because we don't know if this actually does make a difference, if it's 88 or 87.6 or 88.4. So I can give a couple of decimal places there for our total figure. All right, and maybe a similar thing over here, 11.6. I don't need this many decimals. So what I can do is reduce the decimals here to 2. There we go, 11.77. All right, and what about the last activity and the member since? These are columns that are showing figures in the 43,000s, 44,000s. I want somebody to tell me in the chat, what is this referring to and how should these numbers be formatted? It also gives me a strategic opportunity for a sip of water. There we go. Tanya, good work. Tanya says dates. Okay, so does Narima, so does Naila, so does Queen. Great stuff. These are dates. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select with Control Spacebar, and I want to format these as dates. How do I do that? I select all the data in this column with Control Spacebar, and you'll notice that I could go to this drop down and I can say short date or long date. I can do that. But what I'd prefer to do is show you another keyboard shortcut, which in this case is Control Shift and the number 3. All right, Control Shift and the number 3 to format as dates. Your dates might look slightly different. Yours might look like this, with the year, then a slash, and then the month number, and then the day number, but that's okay. It's all good. It's just displaying the same data in a different way, a different format. All right, so that's the last activity column. As I mentioned, practice makes permanent, so let's take the opportunity to do the same thing to the member since column, Control Spacebar and Control Shift 3, and we're going to do a very similar thing to the SAST column. In case you're wondering what is SAST, maybe you've seen that abbreviation before. It's South African Standard Time. In other words, these figures over here, these decimals, you can see they're all between 0 and 1. It actually represents the portion of the day. Okay, so in other words, 0.5 would mean 12 o'clock midday. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control Spacebar and Control Shift 2. Okay, and I want to demonstrate to you the fact that in the sign-in count column, you can see the formatting is general, and that's fine because these are whole numbers and they look fine. We don't have to do anything fancy to them. But just for a demonstration of some of the other shortcuts that are similar to what we've seen now, if we press Control Spacebar and we press Control Shift 1, we see that it goes into number format with 2 decimals. Control Shift 2 is time, as we saw. Control Shift 3 is date. Control Shift 4 is currency, and I've got it as rands by default. If you're sitting in London, yours might be pounds. If you're in other countries, it will depend on your default region settings. Control Shift 5 we saw is percentage, and Control Shift 6 is a scientific format. Maybe you've seen that before, where it takes a long number and it puts it as E and then plus 00, for example. We don't really like that. And Avi has popped a poll onto the screen. Thank you, Avi. So are you guys finding this useful? We'd love to hear from you. I see the responses are coming through. Most of you are saying absolutely. And great stuff. Thank you, guys. Okay, we always hope that there's a huge amount of value. As we go through the rest of this session, we've got another 18 or 19 minutes left. We've got lots more to show you, so stay tuned for, I think the best is still to come. All right, great stuff, guys. Okay, so just back to this column over here, I'm going to go back to Control Shift 1, or I can press Control Shift Squiggle, and it goes back to general number format. Okay, so let's have a look at our cheat sheet once again. And you'll see on the first page of our cheat sheet, we've got a whole lot of shortcuts that we already covered today. Control and the arrow keys, Control Home and Control End. We saw Shift and the arrow keys. We saw Control Spacebar now. And we also have just seen at the bottom of this page, it says Control Shift and squiggle, or 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. Okay, for the different number formats. All right, Alt and Tab to get me back into Excel. Press Control S to save, and happy days. We can now move on. All right, guys, the last thing we want to do in terms of number formatting is this mobile number column. This is a big frustration that a lot of people deal with. Very often in their spreadsheets, they put in a mobile number or a postal code, and the zeros at the start actually just fall away. And that's because Excel thinks they are insignificant. But we've got news for you, Excel. We need the 0. It's significant. So how do we actually get the 0 back? So what we need to do is we need to select all the data. Once again, Control and Spacebar. In the back of the Excel for Dummies book, got it up here on my bookshelf. There are the 10 commandments of Excel, and commandment number 6 says, thou shalt select thy data before thou bring upon any command to bear upon them. Something along those lines, biblical language. Basically what it's saying is select your data before you do something to it. So Control Spacebar, and then what we're going to do is we're going to press Control and 1, which is going to open up the Format Cells box. Okay, the Format Cells dialog box or window, and you can see here we're on the number tab, and we've got number, currency, accounting, etc. We can navigate around this dialog box using the tab button and the arrows, or you can click, but I like to use tab and the arrows. So I go down to custom, I then press tab again, and now I'm on general, and instead of general, we actually want to put in a bunch of zeros. So we need 10 digits, so we put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 digits. Okay, so there we go. We've got 10 zeros. We press enter, and there we've got a 0 displaying before the 4, 8. If we press Control 1 again to go back in, what you can do as well is you might want dashes in between after the first 3 digits. There we go. We put a dash over there, and then after the next 3 digits. Press enter, and there we go. Maybe that's even nicer, even neater, and better for you to display your mobile numbers like that. All right, Control S to save. And guys, let's move swiftly along. All right. So far, we have formatted our work. It looks really good. We've formatted the style and numbers, we've put it in data in table mode. We've got our total row over here. By the way, we might want to select our whole total row with Shift spacebar, and we might want to make it bold. All right, so we press Control B for that. And the next thing we want to do is we may well want to join together our first names and last names. So I think you're going to love this technique. It's some AI functionality. We did promise you Excel and AI. So we need to deliver on that. So let's show you some AI functionality to help us to consolidate the first names and last names into a full name column. All right, so what I can do is I can right click on column letter C. You can see my mouse cursor is pointing down. I can right click and say insert. I could also use a keyboard shortcut for that, but let's leave that for now. What I am going to do is I am going to ask you, how would you consolidate or join together first name and last name? Pop a message in the chat quickly, just very briefly. What feature or function in Excel would you use here? I want to see if anybody has an idea. Okay, amazing. I'm just looking at the attendee count. We've got 290 of you in the room, which is amazing. So I hope that you're all having a lot of fun and learning a lot. All right, you guys have said concatenate. I see that coming up numerous times in the chat. Concatenate, that's great. Well done. Guys, we could use concatenate, but what I want to show you, in fact, today is how to actually save a lot of time and prevent errors, and prevent finger trouble when you're busy programming your concatenate. All we need to do is the following. I'm going to tell Excel what the first person, I've got to get the spelling right. You see, I'm almost made a typo there. I'm going to type in Sonia space Smith. All right, guys, I've seen too many times that a lot of people have a bad habit of typing in somebody's name or something into the cell and then putting a space. Okay, we don't type Sonia Smith space. We just type Sonia Smith and then press enter. Okay, the next person on the list is Nokwazi Rudman. So what we need to do is we need to start typing her name. So we start with the capital letter N, and look at this. How cool is this? What you can see is that it's preempted her full name, as well as it's got there in a faint gray text all the other people. Okay, so what it's doing is, this is a feature in Excel which has been introduced in recent years. It's called flash fill, and it's using its artificial intelligence to actually analyze the pattern and to preempt what we actually want to do. So I'm happy with it. I press enter and it's gone and populated the entire column. If you like that and you prefer that to concatenate, please drop us a message in the chat. We would love to hear from you. What you'll notice as well, many times in Excel, and in this case over here, I've got this little pop-up next to the cell, and I've got a little lightning bolt, and it's actually giving me options. So it's flash fill options. It says I can undo it if I want. I can accept the suggestions. I can select all of the changed cells. And there we go. Happy days. I'm going to press Control Z, and you'll see that I'm still left with Nokwazi. I can press Control Z again, and I'm back to Sonia. And in fact, instead of having to start typing the next person, I could actually use the keyboard shortcut for flash fill, which we notice the button is actually on the data tab. There it is, Control and E. And there we press Control E, and it populates the whole column. I then press Control S to save. And I breathe a big sigh of relief because I didn't have to work very hard for that. So I've learned a cool new tool that you're going to show off to your friends and colleagues that you now know how to use flash fill. You just have to make sure that the pattern is consistent throughout the whole column. All right, what we want to do as well is prevent using generic column names or column headers. So instead of column 1, we're going to write their full name, enter. And the next thing we're going to do is, I'm actually going to open up WhatsApp for Business on my computer in the meantime, because I actually want to show you a real life example of a progress report that we actually send to our groups. So when we onboard our groups onto our training, we do a short Zoom showing or Teams call, showing them how everything works, getting them onboarded and excited for our courses. And then we get them to join a WhatsApp group, and they actually complete each course over a number of weeks, and we track and support them over that WhatsApp group. And we send them a progress leaderboard once a week. So how do we do the progress leaderboard? We have to slice and dice the data and get it into a format that we can then share it on the WhatsApp group. So let's have a look at the end product over here. Just to show you, here's a good example of a WhatsApp group. This is one of our clients, Discovery Insure. There's their progress. Excel 101, 202, 303. There's their progress. Green is for 100%, red is if they haven't started, and NA is if they're not doing that particular course. And once again, sign-in count and last activity. You can see this is what we're actually doing on a day-to-day basis. So how do we do this? We go into our data, and one thing that we'd have to do is add a bit of color and spice to our spreadsheet here. We see we've got our orange headings, but what about adding some color and life to our progress column? Okay, we could do this very manually, but we're not going to waste time by painting the 100%ers in green. We want to use a special tool that is going to do this for us automatically and accurately. And this tool is called conditional formatting. But once again, I can't just stand on a cell. I must obey commandment number 6, and I must select all the data, press, go and click on conditional formatting. I go to color scales, all right? And I'm going to choose the very first one there, a green, yellow, red color scale. And there we go. Isn't that cool? All right. That is very, very efficient and very useful for us. All right. If Anne Caroline was actually not on 100%, or was actually on 90%, change that to 90. I press enter, and there you can see the color changes. That is dynamic and very useful indeed. Now, let's say I want to send a progress update to the team at where? Terex. Let's try Terex. So I'm going to go to my organization heading. I can click on that sort and filter button, or I can use the keyboard shortcut Alt and the down arrow. Okay, so I'm going to drop down, I hold down Alt, and I press the down arrow. And what do I want to do? I want to search for Terex. Okay, so I type in Terex over there, I press enter, and there we go. We can see that our people at Terex are overall 86.17% through the courses. They have logged in on average 6.92 times, and there are 12 people. All right. What I might also want to do is organize this, sort it. Maybe I want to sort it alphabetically by first name or by surname or by full name. Maybe I want to sort it by progress, showing from largest to smallest. And there we go. Now I can see all the people who have finished their course. They're showing us 100%, and there we got the 80, the 38, and the 16. Okay, I might now want to hide the mobile number column. I don't really need to include that. So maybe I want to hide that column. And then what I want to do is I want to select this, copy it. You can see I've copied it. Okay, it's showing us so many different lines over here because I have filtered the data. And then I simply go back into WhatsApp and I press Control V to paste it. Okay. Or I can go into an email or into PowerPoint, and I can do whatever I want with this. All right. Okay. So guys, I'm going to press escape. I'm not going to actually do that. I'm going to press undo because I want to unhide the mobile number. And last but not least, in the last 2 minutes, I'm going to show you very, very quickly how to set up our first pivot table. Maybe you've seen pivot tables before, but pivot tables are great ways to analyze and visualize complex data. By the way, if I want to clear my filter, there's my clear filter button. And once again, I'm going to use my magic Alt key to press Alt and then the number 4 to remove the filters. Okay, so in order to create a pivot table, I would need to go to the Insert tab. I see the pivot table button is over there. I also see it on the Table Design tab. There is a Summarize with Pivot Table button. I can click either one. It's the exact same thing. And what you'll notice is that it's selecting table number 1, which is the table that we've created. It's going to put it in a new worksheet, and I simply click OK. I land up with my placeholder on the left and my field list on the right. This is why it's so important to have column headers. All right. And what I can do is I might be asking Avi, or we might be asking each other or ourselves, how does the progress of Excel 101 compare to 202 and 303 and our Outlook Secrets course? So in that case, I want to analyze the progress across the different courses. So what I do is I've got an option to either tick this box next to course, and there you can see it puts it into the rows box, and it actually shows me my 4 unique items, Excel 101, 202, 303, and Outlook Secrets. And then I simply click on the progress tick box. All right. What you'll notice is it's put it in the values area over here, and it's showing me by default sum of progress. Now, it doesn't make much sense to add up a bunch of progress figures. So what I'm going to do instead is double click on that, and I'm going to change it into average of progress. Click OK. And there we go. I now want to format these cells. So I'm going to select them either with my mouse or my keyboard. And now you know that you can use Control Shift and percentage. So let's do exactly that. And there we go. We now can see very clearly 89%, 87%, 81. There's a bit of a drop off there. And then Outlook Secrets is very high. And we might actually want to insert a quick chart. So we literally just go to Pivot Table Analyze to the tab over there. We click Pivot Chart. We can select one of these. We might want to make it 3D. And there is a very basic pivot chart appearing on the screen now. Okay. Lots more that we can do, guys, with pivot tables, with pivot charts, with conditional formatting, with data analysis in general. That's why we have our full courses, Excel 101, 202, and 303. So if you do have any interest for yourself or for your team to actually enroll in our courses, we would love to continue this conversation. We'd love to give you a full demo showing you our online platform. We'd love to hear from you some of your challenges and priorities in terms of your business when it comes to Excel. So with that in mind, Avi is going to pop a message into the chat with a link to our calendar. We have a Calendly link where you can book some time to meet with us. We also have our email addresses there in the chat and our website. And we'd love to continue the conversation with you. All right. We'd also love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Okay, we use LinkedIn quite actively, so connect with us on LinkedIn. We'd love to continue the conversation. And we'd love to also stop sharing my screen, and we'd love to hear from our friend Greg at Skillfully. Okay, I'm just waiting for Zoom to load here. That's just lagging a few seconds. All right, there is Greg. Greg's been sitting in the background. I hope you've learned a few things along the way here during this masterclass. So Greg, welcome. Greg's the co-founder of Skillfully. Greg, tell us more about Skillfully.
Thank you so much. And I actually have learned a lot. And I must confess, I've been at one of your masterclasses before that you guys had, and I still learned a lot second time around, which was amazing. I also really appreciated not just the expertise, but the humor. I will, fortunately or unfortunately, always look at my spacebar now and think that this is where the aliens go for a drink. I'm going to tell my kids this, and they may be amused or they may not be, but I enjoyed it. Anyway, I loved the occasion. As you all know, Excel is a fantastic tool where you can always find that extra bit of function and efficiency, and Dan and Avi at Excel Academy are the people to provide it. Many of you came to the webinar today via Skillfully. I'm Greg Freed. I'm one of Skillfully's founders, and Dan's kindly given me a chance to tell you a bit about Skillfully, which I think is going to interest you as part of this audience. You might have been visiting our site before at skillfully.co.za. And that's spelled double L, American style. And I've just posted the details of Skillfully in our LinkedIn in the chat. Now, at Skillfully, we're the home of world-class courses in various fields, including financial services. And the way we work is we partner with South Africa's best training providers, with the Excel Academy or other people in different fields. They're online and in-person courses. Some are technical, some are human skills. And we offer these courses at the best price. We guarantee they are never more expensive than going to the provider directly. So here is our landing page. And as you browse it, you're going to see a range of offerings. Of course, you can search for more specific ones, but a quick browse gives you a sense of the range. They include South African regulatory courses like, Class of Business and RE5. You can see that the Excel guys courses right up there as well. They also include international qualifications, which are very popular. If you want to train to be a CFA, whether level 1 or 2 or 3, you can train through Skillfully, and our brilliant provider. You can learn online, such as this popular course that you'll see on the right, or you can learn in person. If you take, for example, the Certified Scrum Master course that is in particular locations around the country. And you'll get a sense that our range is really broad. So maybe you need to satisfy your CPD requirements with a few quick, interesting, easily digestible courses. There is CPD Made Easy. Or perhaps you feel like you need to sharpen up your broader business skills. There's a course on entrepreneurship. Or maybe you're interested in personal and career development together, in which case you'll be looking at the Enneagram. And we could go on. There's this great range of courses you'll be interested in. It's a site and it might look like we're tech-based, but we are really a relationships business. So we're all about friendly and efficient ways to upskill and boost your career, whether it's just for you or whether it's for your team at work. So, for example, take a course on Power BI. Yeah, it's Power BI. And I've chosen it because it may interest you. It's a great complement to Excel because of its visual and other capacities. It's also in the suite of Microsoft products. So here we are on the course page. And if you're interested, you could check out the details. It's an example of one of our courses. And then you could get in touch with a request or questions. And we will then write or call and we'll make it all really easy for you. We really focus on customer service, on client service, whether it's for companies or individuals. So we're hoping to see you on the Skillfully side and that you'll follow us on LinkedIn. I'm going to repost those details in the chat where we do all sorts of things. We share our upcoming courses and our interviews and our news. And let me again thank Dan and Avi, and thank you to all for coming.